Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Adam Mason with the Bearded Hog here. Just wanted to let you guys in on a little fun project that we're doing. If you didn't listen to the last episode, we're doing a free workshop next Wednesday. If you're listening to this, next Wednesday, the 11th at 7 p.m. for free in our Facebook group on generating more wedding leads. So last year, Mason Photography got about 400 wedding leads, and this year we're already on pace to get over 500 wedding leads. We're not even to the end of February yet. We're barely into March right now, and we've already gotten over 100 wedding leads in 2 months. So I just want to share, I just want to open up, peel back the curtain, if you will, similar to this podcast, but it'll be a visual thing, right? So you won't have to listen to me, you get to see it. And I want to show you the few techniques that I do that have worked over the past few years to build up a machine that generates leads for me and just gets your confidence back. So come hang out March 11th, 7 p.m. You can go to togfb.com, aka togfb.com, to join the Facebook group. And we're going to go live in there March 11th at 7 p.m. You do not want to miss this, all right? This is going to be free, and this will change your business forever. The principles here will be so good. So definitely come check it out. Now on to our awesome guest. This guest is a return guest. His name is Bryan Minear, and he is one of my good buddies. He's been an influence in my life. I mean, we had him on back in episode 5 or 6 just because of his influence in my life and our friendship. We literally met on Twitter, and now we've been buddies for like 10 years, and he's gotten to see my photography journey grow from a guy who knew nothing and to a guy who still knows nothing and now, has a podcast and runs his business on it, but it's working. And so Bryan's just been a super good resource for me. And so he's going through kind of a fun winter time that's kind of hard for a lot of people. As you know, we have an episode called Winter is Coming on this topic. And I just wanted to have him on and see what he's going through, because I feel like a lot of us go through that. And Bryan's a talented guy. He's got thousands of Instagram followers, and he still struggles with this. And so I think that's really important for us as entrepreneurs to feel like we're not alone, and like this specific feeling, it's going to happen and it's okay. And so I just wanted to talk with Bryan and kind of encourage him and see what he wanted to do. And just, we had a really good heart-to-heart conversation. So I would encourage you to listen to it. Without any further ado, here's Bryan Minear. Bryan, it's been a long time, man.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Or I guess not
really.
Yeah, we had you. I was on your podcast, which is, something that's happened since the first time you were on is We the Creators, man. So, man, so good. Tell me, I don't even know where to get started. I know you're in a rough place right now. So tell me about that, man. I feel like on Instagram and Twitter, you've been kind of
grumpy,
alluding to this. Yeah, but it's more than that. It seems like this like artistic frustration,
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Or like frustrating that complacency, but then like not knowing how to get out of it, maybe. So anyway, I'll let you do the words. Like, what are you going through right now, man?
It's tough to describe. I've been trying. My wife's like. Can I cuss on here? I forget.
Yeah.
Okay. My wife's super pissed at me right now because I don't want to talk about it. I have a lot of stuff going on between like just personal life stuff, extended family having some issues, and then I feel like every year around this year I get the normal seasonal depression type thing, and so like everything kind of compounds. Everything compounded this year, the seasonal depression, because it's snowy here and just terrible and cold and the sun rarely comes out. And then at the same time, I feel like the podcast has been great because it's really let me pick other people's brains and like, someone like you where fill in the gaps. Like I suck at business stuff. So I knew I wanted to have you on the podcast to like, for other people's benefit to hear your knowledge, but then also just for myself. And so I feel like I've kind of hit this wall where I don't know what my next move is, but I feel like there needs to be something. And so like, much like yourself, like I feel like as creatives, we constantly have people like applauding us and kind of building us up, and our egos, oh man, you're so creative, and oh, I love the stuff, I love the work that you do, like I can't believe some of the stuff that you do, and I blah blah blah, all that stuff. Like we get hammered with that so often, and then like I just hit this point where I'm like, okay, cool, I have all this talent apparently, or so everybody tells me, and yet I feel like I'm not really doing anything with it. I feel like I'm spinning my tires more or less.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the podcast was great. This is honestly the first time I've touched my microphone since last year. I've literally just shut everything off. Like, I haven't been Twittering as much. I've been, you know, just kind of off in my own little world, trying to do some introspection and figure out what the heck is going to set me on the path that I need to be on to move forward, you know, and just to find some joy in creating stuff again. And so, yeah, that's more or less where I've been. Like, we kicked off this year doing a Caribbean cruise, and I kind of knew, like, I knew before ever going on a cruise that I wasn't a cruise person. But like, it was with my wife's entire family, which that part of it was actually good. Like, when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh," but like, I actually really do like my wife's family, and they're probably the only reason I enjoyed any of it. But it was just like, I just didn't, you know, spend all this money to go on vacation, and it just was not fulfilling or satisfying at all for me. And I think that, so like, we did that like a couple days after Christmas through New Year's. We're gone for a week. So I like started off my 2020 just negative vibes, just totally, you know, and then had to go back to work literally the day that we got back from the cruise. So it's just been a shit show ever since, more or less.
No, I get that. I think, you know, it's one of those things. This is something I found, and it took me a while. Like, ironically, I felt weird pitching this to my wife, but I think that there are like photographers, just photographers in general, of all kinds. But like, if you like just taking cool photos of cool things or cool places at cool times, it's like, I've been to Iceland 7 times, right? Mm-hmm. My favorite time was with another photographer.
Yeah.
And no other people. It was just me and him, and we were in sync. When we wanted to rest, we rested, and we rested. We had very similar like mindset towards what that meant.
Yeah.
You know, and for us, ironically, you'll laugh at this, was like, oh yeah, like sunrise, we're getting up every day. Yeah. Sunset, we're shooting every day. Mm-hmm. But in the middle of the day, okay, yeah, that's when we're going to eat. That's when we're just not going to care. We're going to watch Netflix. Like, we like waited out a storm and just watched on our phone. Whereas traditional vacation would be like, oh, we're wasting our time. We should go like check out the museum or whatever, which is cool. And again, this isn't like a photo work trip, but it was so therapeutic for me and therapeutic for him, and just to be like aligned in that way. And I'm not sure if that's like something that you were hurting for on this cruise, but I've never been on a cruise, and I'm going to call it now. I'm not a cruise guy. Yeah. I love boats. I love the ocean. I love sun. I love travel, but
we'll see. You might like a cruise, because I don't like any of those things.
Oh, I watched this video on what they do to the environment, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, that's rough.
I was like, I wasn't into it anyway. And now I'm like, dang it. Yeah. So I don't know.
No, I think you're hitting on something that is absolutely like something that I have pinpointed as probably one of my biggest issues. And it's that, like, this is the first like real family vacation that me and my wife and son have done, outside of just like road trips and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it's just hard for me to shift into another gear, because, you know, and it goes back to, you know, me, and I think I talked about this the first time I was on your podcast, just like my whole story with Instagram and finding my passion for photography. And it was out chasing the light, and it was shooting sunrises and sunsets, and just like putting basically what other people would consider putting yourself through hell. Like you said, you stay up all night shooting the stars, you shoot the sunset, and then you go to sleep. Like that is fun for me. And I think, so I've gotten so accustomed to my friends, my little crew of friends that I travel with, you know, as frequently as we can. We really haven't done anything. Like, I blew my wad of traveling on 3 weeks in the Middle East with different friends. And I was on assignment for that trip. So I got to double dip a lot. Like, I got to do stuff for me and stuff for work, but it wasn't a standard like photo trip, what I would consider a vacation. Like, so being like lapped in luxury with meals at all times on a cruise ship is far from my, like, I just love sleeping in a freaking tent on top of a Jeep in the middle of nowhere, freezing my butt off which was really the only, outside of the Middle East last year, the only other trip that I did was to Colorado in October. And I met up with my buddy Seth, and who lives in an Airstream. And so I rented a rooftop tent Jeep and literally just spent a couple days roaming around Colorado, sleeping in, 20-degree temperatures with no heater. And like that, to me, that is like my ideal perfect scenario for, being on a vacation, just being out. And somehow my brain considers like semi-suffering as enjoyment. I don't know why. I'm a backwards person, I think.
Well, I mean, I think it's, as far as that goes, it's kind of like we talked about, where it's, it's creating something, or like you got to make something on those trips.
Right.
Whereas the cruise, I can imagine just personally in general, like any like quote unquote Christmas vacation with an in-laws family, or even your own family, it like, even in addition to normal, you have a young son, even just a normal, like, hey, taking care of him or taking care of your wife, like it's work.
Yeah.
It seldom feels like rest or relaxation or whatever. Right. Whereas, there's a pastor I knew back in the day that said, Sabbath isn't a day. Sabbath is what fills your cup. And it was kind of the idea of like, for you, it might, these cruise vacations, or like for me, Christmas break does not fill my cup. What fills my cup is like going to Iceland, and whether it's challenging or not is like the idea of just like, hey, I'm there, or I want to make stuff, or this something, it makes me feel a certain way. And I like that. And I want to chase that feeling, right. Or like going to see a movie or whatever. That's how I rest. Whereas my wife, she rests very differently. She's an introvert. She's very much like, hey, let me chill on the couch and read. And I'm like, what are those combined letters in those paper things? What's going on? Yeah. So I think there's something, I hear a little bit of that as well, but also too, it's like a hit at a not unhealthy as in like, oh no, I feel so bad for you, Bryan, but not your favorite point of like existential dread, if you will. It hits you at the wrong time. If you were cruising like, in July after you had just finished like a cool trip, you'd be like, that's whatever.
It probably would have gone down a lot smoother. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a combination of this stuff. And I was going to ask you too, if I get this way as well, I think in the winter, but also just in general, where some things just become easy or systematic, and that's cool. And it's great for like my free time, but then I will feel reckless. Like that's my main thing, is I'm like, okay, like I just need to find a direction, or I have this energy and I haven't spent it on anything, and my work is just mundane, or I'm like, it's already done, or it's finished. And so I was going to ask you if you felt like a little bit reckless during this time. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting hearing you describe that, because I would consider myself a pretty like a reckless person by nature, if you will. Like I don't like routine. I don't like, having, and so I think that kind of plays into it. You kind of hit the nail right on the head, because, there's like I said, I'm, in this cold climate this time of year, like the sun rarely comes out, and I really don't shoot when the sun isn't out, or, or it's not golden hour, or some cool ice or snow thing is happening. And so literally my routine is, I go to work, I come home, or I go to work, I pick up my son, we come home, we do dinner, we do bedtime, like, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of stuck in a routine, and with no like hope in sight until the weather breaks of breaking out of that. So I think, that definitely plays a huge part in it, just because it was the same thing on the boat. Like, we stopped several places like Jamaica and Cozumel and wherever, I don't know, Cayman Islands, different stuff. And so there's the same thing though. We would get off the boat for like 3 to 5 hours. And then maybe like an hour before the light was going to get good, and I would actually be interested in taking some photos, we would get back on the boat. So like the only photos that I could take were horizon line, water, sun behind the clouds. You know what I mean? So I think it made me a little stir crazy, that I was like, oh, I found this really cool shot, but I'm not going to be able to shoot it because it's noon and there's people everywhere and super sunny. And so there's just a lot of those factors. I think that kind of starting, it just put me on the spiral, like where I couldn't, it's taken me, what is it now? The 23rd. It's taken me like almost 20 days to like recover. I feel like I'm finally pulling myself up out of it now, but I just feel like I've been spiraling.
No, that makes sense. Have you ever seen there's a video by Zach Arias from back in the day, and I think it's like about winter or something. I'll send it to you, but do you know what I'm talking about? Have you heard of this?
Vaguely. I watched a lot of Zach Arias' videos, so I'd be surprised if I didn't see it.
Right? He's like my number one guy that I feel like most photographers now don't know. But I'm like, for me, I'm like, please come on the podcast and just rip some stuff with me.
Before I was an ex-photographer, I obviously followed him on Twitter. I went to, before I had any notoriety whatsoever, and I would use notoriety very loosely even now, but I was like going through Atlanta for something, and I was like, hey man, I just randomly reached out. I was like, hey man, can I buy you a beer? And he was like, oh, if I was in town, I totally would, but I just left. And I was like, no, like I would have been perfect. I could have met Zach Arias, but yeah, anyway, sorry.
Right. Yeah. So he has this video that when I found it, I was going through a similar thing, and I go through a very similar feeling most winters, I feel like in general. Ironically, not this one, but I'll tell you why I think that is in a second. But this video was kind of him describing that, like, every winter I don't know if he goes through a rebirth, but it just felt like we were on the same page, where he was kind of like, I reached this point where I feel like my work doesn't matter. I don't matter. I'm not better than anybody else. Nothing, like, really just existential dread, right? Like there's just the bottom of the bottom. And I'm not making things that are fulfilling me. Everything I made in the last year is garbage. What am I doing here? I should just quit, whatever. But it's a lot more poetic. Like, the video is really, really good. And watching that, I was like, holy crap. Yeah. Like, this is what a lot of us feel, whether that's in the winter or even just lulls, like when I have a wedding every weekend or an event every weekend or whatever, I'm in the groove and I'm just like, yep, got to do this, got to go. And that can, probably there are times when that hides certain things that I'm going through. But at the same time, when you have a month off or 2 months off between big things or whatever, and you're just in the emails or you're just in the mundane parts of things, you're kind of like, okay. So, it's hard. Like, I just got off a call with another photographer who, she got me really inspired to just like make more personal work. And I was just like, damn, like, I really just need to do it. But I'm like so bashful and lame about it. And it's like, Adam, you have the time, you have the resources, like, you could hire people if you wanted. Like, let's make something for you. Yeah. And not just like pussyfoot around it, not make a half-assed version. Like, no, let's try and make something cool that's just for you. And like, yeah, if it gets 0 likes, who cares? Like, make something that you want to make. And I don't know. Yeah, winter sucks. There's an episode I did called Winter is Coming, and it's about that video from Zach, because it's like, we're all going to feel that way. And then, like, I'm kind of like, what can we do to make sure that next year is better than ever?
Right.
Or how can we use this as fuel to be like, okay, like, screw this. I'm going to chase down and crush last year's self, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's funny. I can't wait to watch that video and then also listen to that podcast episode, because what's funny is I've always, like, winter is like my time. I would much rather be cold than hot. Like, I don't like the summertime usually, but I think just as a creator, warmer is better, and being outside, and I'm just an outside person, and I can't even go outside and play on the playground with my son, which is like huge endorphin rush for me, and we do that all the time through the summer. So yeah, it totally makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, I think another reason that I've been so down on myself is going into like the end of the year last year, going into Christmas, I had like so much potential, and I was like buzzing. I felt so good about everything. I was shooting constantly. Like the podcast was hopping. I have literally 5 episodes recorded that I haven't even touched, just because I've been like just done
in a funk.
So yeah, man. But it definitely makes a lot of sense. Like the winter thing, like it's real. Like, as much as I hate to say that, like, some kind of weird thing has affected me like that, it definitely has. Now, I will say this, and I'm anxious to hear why you're not down this winter, for sure. But
sure.
Something's interesting. So the past week, like since Sunday. So I have wanted to explore more in the world of like motion design, motion graphics, 3D design, like stuff like that. I've dabbled in programs like Cinema 4D in the past, and like enough to where I kind of know the interface, but I don't even really know what I'm doing. But for the past year now, I've worked with these like incredible motion graphics designers. And so I've said like, oh, I just need to like pick your brains. I need to learn these programs because I feel like it could really unleash this new like realm of creativity for me if I just get into it. You know what I mean? So
I can totally see that.
Yeah. So honestly, since Saturday or Sunday, I have just been like, I subscribed to Skillshare, and I have been just nonstop consuming tutorials and learning these programs and just trying different things and experimenting. And honestly, like that's the only switch that I've flipped to like help me get out of this. And I've had just no greater satisfaction. Like it's weird because I'm not a person. I feel like I'm constantly learning, especially when it comes to design, just because I'm such a consumer and I consume so much and I follow a ton of designers. So I'm always like seeing what people are doing, but I don't ever give myself a ton of time to like catch up or learn something new. I kind of learn as I go while I'm making something rather than dedicating time to actually, learning new techniques or trying to better myself. So that's kind of where I live in both photography and design stuff. Like I just do my own thing. I experiment along the way, and then I find what I find. And I watch tutorials here and there, but never really in depth. So the idea of subscribing to Skillshare to me, I've done the free trial before, but I've never actually like gotten into it. I've watched like half a workshop, and I'm like, yeah, this is dumb. I'm out. But like I have subscribed to so many workshops, and I have already finished like 10 of them. But it's been amazing and like super revitalizing. And I'm still not to where I see, I can't call myself like I'm a 3D artist or anything by any stretch of the imagination. And there's no end in sight to that, but like, holy crap, I've been having so much fun and
awesome.
Just learning something new and experimenting and whatnot.
Hey guys, just wanted to hop in here and thank one of our partners. This one is from Tave. Have you guys ever dropped the ball on a client, missed an email, or forgot to schedule a meeting? It's embarrassing, right? Like it's the absolute worst, and you just look foolish and unprofessional, and that makes you feel less valuable. Well, that's where Tave comes in. Tave is one of the most advanced and customizable platforms for managing your photography business. It's what I use literally every day, and I've been a client of theirs for years. Before Tave, I felt like I had to manage everything. My own calendar, invoices, proposals, emails, of course, and scheduling, second photographer contracts in Word documents and PDFs. Like, it was awful. I had a Dropbox folder for every client. It was terrible. Now I manage over 60 clients a year. And even as we grow our team, Tave is making it easier to make sure that every single client gets the luxury experience that we want them to have. One of my favorite features of Tave is the booking reports. Tave tracks all your inquiries, how they found you, of course, how much you got paid. And this helps me look at booking trends to predict when bookings will be slower, when they ramp up, as well as setting goals to help raise our average booking rate, right? So like that data is so important, guys. Come on. I've used Tave for years now, and it's changed my business forever. Whether you're a wedding photographer, videographer, headshot guru, or boudoir, whatever, Tave can work for you. The guys over there have hooked it up for listeners, guys. Instead of their normal 30-day free trial, you guys get an extra 30 days. So that's 2 months total to just set up Tave, try it out, and get your life back. So head over to thebeardedhog.com/Tave to sign up and get your extra 60-day free trial today. That's thebeardedhog.com/TAVE to try out Tave and get your life back today, guys. Thanks for Tave for sponsoring our show.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw your tweet about that the other day, and I was like, yes, because I feel like that's a lot of designers that I know. It's, I don't know. I want to say probably other, with the exception of like 2, which is obviously very anecdotal, like a lot of designers go into motion and 3D or even just After Effects. Like, okay, I design cool stuff all the time. Can I make it move and do cool stuff? And I think for a lot of people, it can be really fun, and it's like a different skill set than, say, if you're just going to go into like conventional video.
Right.
You know, you're like, no, like I already know a lot of these things, and like especially for you, you know, you're going to know like lighting, angles, perspective, all these things that as you like make things move or design things, it can really come to life, which is like so cool. Whereas for me, I remember taking a motion graphics class in college, and it was like, hey, I want to make this box go from left to right, you know? And, you know, eventually you make it more complicated, but it was, because it's only one class, you got to the end, you're like, okay, cool. Like I don't feel overwhelmed in After Effects, but I don't feel like a monster, you know? And then like Cinema 4D is even crazier.
It's freaking baffling to me. Yeah.
Right? So it's like, you know, now Lightroom or Photoshop, not even, but Lightroom, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like the master of this program. Like I know everything I need to know about this, and this is great. And then like last year was the first time I ever had to do a contact sheet, and I was like, oh, Lightroom does contact sheets. This is great. Which is crazy, but whatever. And you know, it's one of those things, but it's I think what you were kind of saying is why I would say my winter was not that bad, whereas like it's just intentionality.
Yeah.
Winter is a reactive space for most people where we are ready to rest or ready to take time off, or school, church, hobbies, Boy Scouts, whatever are closed for this season. And then you already have this momentum or this inertia, and you have 3 weeks of emptiness or 4 weeks of emptiness where there's no intention or there's nothing happening in that realm, if you will. Like work is still happening, family's still happening, but this other layer of like personal fun development, whatever you want to call it, is like not happening. And so that's like it's not filling your cup, like we talked about before. And I think for me, this year I came in saying, okay, like what are my quote unquote 2020 goals? And I kind of wrote them down. And then this was the first year I ever did like a company retreat, which ironically just looked like me alone in a room for 2 days. But, you know, I wanted to try this thing where essentially it was like focused time, big picture thing. So it was like, Adam, you're not touching email. You're not touching your phone. Like, what do we want for 2020? And what do we need to do? What do we need to like execute right now and get some really focused, like deep work time that you can't do otherwise, or it's just harder to do. Like it's easy to be just so distracted. And that helped a lot. And then just kind of like getting to work, I use this phrase all the time, but like working on the business rather than working in the business. And so it was really, really cool. And so that's helped me a lot, just to have some direction. And then, you know, I don't know. I bought a motorcycle, another motorcycle, which might have made it happier or better. I have no idea. Don't buy a motorcycle in the winter, guys, because it's cold. Like I rode today and I was like, this is stupid. But, you know, nonetheless, there is something that is like filling that time, you know. So I've even considered, I know people who take like, they're not in college, but they'll take the January term. They'll take a class at a college during January just to like help develop. So it's similar to the Skillshare thing.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, if you don't have intentionality with that time, it can often just feel weird and in general. And if you're not feeling challenged or whatever, it's hard. And so, yeah, like you're not going out because it's winter anyway. You're losing those sunsets. So you're like, it's just not lining up. And yeah, I can see how that is just crushing everything.
Yeah. I mean, my wife got me an Xbox and Jedi Fallen Order for Christmas, and I beat Jedi Fallen Order in a few weeks. And then I started playing Call of Duty mobile on my iPad with an Xbox controller. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like, yeah, this is fun and it gets my mind off of all the shit that I don't want to think about. But like that's when it's flipped. I was like, no, I have to be using this time to like do something. And I mean, it's interesting because I'm the kind of guy that wants to do everything. So like, I want to play guitar. I want to code an iPhone app. Like I want to learn how to do video. And like, I've dabbled in all of those things, but none of them have really been as fulfilling as like photography or the type of design that I do. But like knowing how being able to do 3D and stuff like an animation like could also affect both my design and my photography. Like this could be just an added layer to the type of artist that I am, the kind of jobs that I'm looking at, the kind of clients that I'm looking at getting. And so it just made total sense for me to like finally just freaking do it and go in with like both, like where, before I go to bed, like I used to just sit and watch Hulu or Netflix or whatever. Now I'm like watching tutorials before I fall asleep. I can't say this often because I don't remember my dreams, but I woke up the other day, I think it was yesterday morning. I don't think it was this morning, but I woke up yesterday morning and I had dreamt a tutorial. It was the weirdest thing. Like I was taking a tutorial in my dream. But like, yeah, I feel like just having that, this feeling that I'm going forward now and I'm like building my skill set has made all the difference in the, you put it good when you called it like a lull earlier, like that. I just have felt like I'm just like stagnant, and I still love what I do with photography and everything, but like, it's just, I don't know. I just needed something. I needed like a kick in the right direction, or a kick in a different direction, I should say. And just to get going and get my brain working again. And, yeah, man, I don't know. It's been a weird couple weeks because like I look at Twitter and I just want to yell at people, which is not my normal. That's not. But like I open up Twitter and I scroll through all these people that I've started following in the past couple of years, and I'm like, I just want to rip your head off about something stupid that you said or whatever. And then it's just I just need to shut it all out because I'm just not in the right frame of mind to be. Everything, literally everything. I think I tweeted a couple weeks ago that like, is it just me, or did 2020 make literally everyone significantly more annoying? Spoiler alert, it's me. So yeah.
I mean, that's even a good thing to just recognize, like, hey, it might be you or whatever, because we get there. It happens. I mean, for me, my 2020 thing for now was like at least on Twitter in general, was using the muted keywords. So like I muted a bunch of stuff that was like anything political. Yep. Like in 2019, I really dove into it and was like, all right, I want to know everything that's going on. I want to be hyper aware. I want to know both sides. I also want to know what's going on locally, which is crazy and even just weirder because again, like we're not even a real state here in DC. So I'm like, okay, that's a weird challenge thing.
Yeah.
And anyway, I listened to probably half my podcasts at the time were all political as well. And I would listen to it and I'd go home and complain to my wife, like, you hear what happened today? Yeah. And it was just not beneficial at all. And, like at the same time, part of my privilege, at least as a white dude, was that I'm allowed to not pay attention to it. And I was like, I'm going to try and use that. I'm still going to be passionate about making change where I want to make it happen in my, in my wife's school and our community locally. But I was like, for my personal brain and health, like you said, I just like, when you scroll Twitter and you're like peak healthiness, you're like, oh, Twitter, this is great. But if you're even like a smidge, not at 100%, it can quickly drain you. It's like Street Fighter. Quickly. Yeah. So, I'm definitely, I'm on that same train as well. I was like, all right, like what can I focus on? What do I need to do? But I want to ask you, for anybody that's still listening, but this is good. It's good to hear because people, I think too, when I first started the Bearded Talk was like, I wanted to talk about stuff that people don't talk about. So, if nobody's ever experienced a bad winter, welcome. How's it going? But I want to talk about what has happened since the last time we had you on. You were like our first or second guest we ever had on. And things were just beginning to, well, at least we'll use Instagram as the gauge, like pop for you on there because you were making this effort to like show up every day, shoot every day, post every day, like high quality is what you were doing, and you had consistency. So it was like good and fast, but so probably not cheap to your personal life, if you will. Yep. The good, fast, cheap triangle. So tell me, what has happened since then? I feel like one, Instagram followers have blown up, job, a child, like give me what's been going on since then. And then I know on our episode on We the Creators, you were kind of like thinking about what could freelance look like for Bryan, hypothetically.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, so gosh, so much has happened since the last time I was on here. I think a lot of, and it's funny you say like I was posting consistently, and I look at what I used to do, and it was like, I mean, there were like stints where I was posting twice a day. Like I had a morning post and an evening post, and when I can remember the anxiety of thinking, okay, I'm going to post this for the morning, but what in the hell am I going to post in the evening? And I like that literally consumed my thought process. Was like, no, I gotta go shoot something on my way home from work that I'm going to be able to edit in time to post. And like looking back at it, it was just so stupid. But I mean, it kind of contributed to a lot of the positives that I've gotten from whether it's like just friends and relationships or like brand partnerships or, you know, whatever. I can't talk too negatively about it all because it kind of landed me in a great spot, like in a spot I never thought I would be in with like my photography career, you know? But definitely, I mean, on the Instagram side of things, I think, do you remember what year we did the last episode? Just to
2017, I think.
Okay, so it's been 3-ish years. So I don't remember if that was pre or post algorithm, but I want to think it was pre-algorithm even, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember, honestly. And I feel like realistically, there's probably always an algorithm in some way.
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. It wasn't. It was chronological
timeline. Yeah, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so post chronological timeline, obviously everybody freaked out. But I looked at it as a way to, instead of like feeling this anxiety to keep consistently posting, so I stayed fresh in people's minds. So like I was just constantly putting stuff out there. I looked at it as, okay, I need to start dialing it back. Like, quality is way better than quantity, especially when it comes to that. And now that people aren't seeing my stuff in real time, like I have the luxury of only, you know, if I take 5 good shots from my session at sunset, like I can take the best of those and throw the rest away theoretically, because I never throw anything away, but like not, you know, just not show them to the public. So yeah, I think I got a lot when Instagram implemented an algorithm. I got a lot more healthy when it comes to like my schedule, and then, you know, obviously having a kid plays into that. It was weird because I've talked about this on my podcast, but I had a kid kind of right at the point where Fujifilm was having me do stuff more. And then like I was doing like brand partnerships and traveling. I went on my first couple big like GMC shoots in Yosemite and Smoky Mountain National Park, like maybe 6 months after my son was born. So like stuff was starting to pick up, and I remember having this almost negative energy about it. Like I remember somebody telling me at the time, kind of jokingly, they're one of those types of people that kind of jokes, but you can tell there's some truth there, and they're kind of an asshole, but not really. They don't really want to be an asshole, but they are. Somebody was like, "Oh, you're having a kid. It's kind of like the end of your creative pursuits, huh?" kind of thing. And I remember kind of taking that, laughing it off at the time, but then like it really got to me, like, oh, did we make a mistake with this? Like, because, you know, obviously I'm not going to be able to do as much, or I'm not going to be able to ramp things up as quickly as maybe it should in order to, you know, make it last longer or whatever. But, you know, things kind of went at a good pace, and I was doing that a lot more. And the thing that happens when you become a parent is you kind of realize that even if everything else, like I could quit photography, I could quit design, I could go get a job at Home Depot, and as long as I have like this relationship with my child, like I'm going to be content and happy. I'm going to have regrets later on in life for sure, but like I can live my life contently. So I guess I quickly, probably around 2018, quickly like changed kind of my entire ethos. And it was like always push myself and always try to get better and, you know, have no regrets in my life, but not at the expense of like being the best dad that I can be. So, you know, there are times when like you have to go to the Middle East for 3 weeks, but like you kind of plan around it and you prepare and you get all your ducks in a row. And you FaceTime as much and as often as you can, and you do that whole thing. But like, yeah, I think, I mean, so much has changed. I've probably been through, if it was 2017, I was probably I don't know if it was pre-Vanguard even, but I've been through probably 2 full-time jobs now as well. And
A lot of transition.
yeah, it has been, man. It's been it's been like a kind of a tumultuous couple of years, like in a good way. Like I said, I'm kind of a chaotic type person, and if there was some sort of like subscription service for jobs, I would change jobs probably once a year, just because I like the new challenge of doing something different, and I don't like it when you kind of get in that groove where I feel like after a year at any full-time job, a year gives you just the amount of time to learn what you're doing, like kind of really grow into it, and then maybe rise above your role a little bit. But then you kind of get in that groove where you're just on repeat. You do the same things every day. And especially me as a graphic designer, what sucks is there's not a whole lot of room for growth there. I don't see myself ever wanting to be like an art director or creative director at an agency or anything like that. Like that just sounds like pure hell. I'd rather be the one that's like actually executing. So there's not a lot of growth when you think about it in terms of that. So like, that's where I think, as you kind of mentioned, I've been really thinking about what it means for me to get back into freelancing, because that would allow me that same unpredictability where I'm not getting stuck in a groove all the time. But without having to obviously change jobs every couple of years. Now, given I probably would still be at Vanguard right now, had my boss who hired me left, and that kind of was going to change the entire department, and I wasn't into that like idea. So it really wasn't like I'm leaving because I'm burnout thing. It was a personnel situation where the whole 3 of the 4 people in the marketing department left over the course of like a month and a half. So it was just like a transition point. But yeah, I mean, I think that really brings us up to speed. I mean, I still post on Instagram semi-regularly. It's funny that you bring that up, like just thinking about how much content I used to post even 2-3 years ago. Now it's like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, if that. And I've even been toying around with the idea of doing like once a week, just because I want to start. It's not a numbers game for me anymore. I mean, I've been since like the algorithm like matured. I've been at the same amount of followers. Like I gain followers and then I lose the same amount of followers that I gain. So I've been at like in the 48,000. Actually, no, that's a lie. I was at like 49.9, and I was really excited that I was finally going to hit 50K. And Instagram, then literally a day later, Instagram did a big purge, and I went back to 47. And I'm back up to like 48.5 now, but like I've been in that same like 47 to 49 zone for like probably since we talked last, or since right after, because the eclipse I think is what really blew me up, and I think that probably happened right before I was on your show. But yeah, so like I don't even I couldn't tell you how many likes my last couple photos got. Like I kind of shut it off after I post, and then I'll interact with people in the comments for like that. Usually I post in the evening, so I'll engage with people throughout the evening in the comments, and then I just shut it off and don't even look at anything prior. Like I answer DMs all the time, like continuously. Talking to people in DMs, but like it's rare that I go back and look at comments after like maybe 3 or 4 hours.
Hey guys, want to come in and thank our second sponsor. During wedding season, I'm always thinking of how I can expand and generate more revenue for my business. It's something we all need to be thinking about. Most of the time, I come up with ideas and they usually seem like more of a hassle than a help, so it just doesn't happen. Until Photo Booth Supply Co., they're an incredible photo booth company based in California whose sole goal is to help us make more money. I have their new booth. It's called the Salsa, and it's leveled up my business for sure. I chose the Salsa, guys, because it fits my brand. There's no printer, papers, any of that dumb, embarrassing stuff, and it's also not heavy. Like old photo booths used to come in these huge, huge cases that were just awful to carry, and I hated that. So Salsa is digital only, selfie style, and it's eco-friendly. So it's really, really cool. It's all in one. You don't even need to hire an attendant. It literally takes me 60 seconds to set up the Salsa, and then the booth can run itself. It's so cool. It's light enough that anybody can use it, add it to their trunk or in the back of an Uber if you're in a big city. And I even know plenty of wedding photographers who take it with them to destination weddings. So that's pretty cool. You could never travel with an old school photo booth like that. My favorite part of Salsa and the team at Photo Booth Supply Co. is that even at an event or wedding, while it's generating more revenue for our businesses, guys, it's also doing marketing for me. So every photo, boomerang, GIF, or video it takes, it asks for a text phone number or an email address, and it literally collects all of those. And then it sends the guests pre-made text and emails from my contact info, and it leads to couples booking during weddings. Like I literally get inquiries before my job is done at weddings. It's so cool. I obviously don't answer those emails because I'm working, but to get those leads, it's so incredible because people are so impressed by this. It's also super affordable, guys. They even have payment plans. You don't have to start to save up to make more money. You can just start today. All right. So head over to thebeardedhog.com/booth to get your Salsa photo booth and start making more money on every wedding today. That's thebeardedhog.com/BOOTH. Big thanks to Photo Booth Supply Co. for being a partner.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things I feel like things are shifting and changing, you know. I think Instagram is weird, and I feel like it's not something, there's obviously a lot more to our jobs and our lives than Instagram, but like for me, I think it was my second or third highest place where I got leads and bookings from last year and the year before. And so it's like, and to be fair, it's not to like make it silly, and I don't even have 10,000 followers or whatever, but it feels, I did that without like trying.
Yeah.
Like I especially last year, I pulled way back. I didn't blog everything. I didn't post every wedding. I think like I was prone to be like, oh, what if this couple gets mad that they're not on Instagram? And then I was like, they're like unhealthy feelings towards themselves are not my responsibility.
Yep.
And so I was like, I need to show the work that I want to work or that I want to show. I want to talk about the things I want to talk about and the big things and the things that matter to me and that matter to my brand and that couples can find in that brand. And so I kind of took a step back and was like, all right, when I have something to say, I'll say it. Or when I have a plan, I'll make it planned out and I'll do this. And then other than that, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna go ham on this. Like I'm gonna try and whatever. But
I think that's a smart way to go about it, honestly. I mean, it goes back to that quality over quantity thing. Like you're not just posting to post or because you feel like you have to, like you're waiting until those opportune moments when like what you have to share is going to speak to your audience. And I think there's been a tremendous shift, at least in my mentality when it comes to social media. Where I kind of, and I know people still kind of like tout followers as this badge of honor or whatever, but like I have this coworker who, anytime I'm meeting somebody, he's like, oh, you should check out his Instagram. He does it in a lovingly funny way, but he's like, no, you got to see this dude's got, 48,000 followers. Like it's crazy. And it's like almost a shameful thing to me. Like I wish, like YouTube, I think YouTube gives you the option to hide your subscriber count. I wish I could hide my follower count. I wish that I would finally get the hidden likes that they have been experimenting with. Cause like, I feel like all of that stuff, like if it could just be a portfolio for me and a way for me to communicate with people, like that's all I care about. Because like the people who are chasing the numbers still at this point, I mean, they're just not people that I'm going to gel with at all. And I still get the DMs that are like, hey, do you want to like join my crew of people that comment on each other's photos so we can like, play the algorithm and get better results? I'm just like, there's still people doing this?
Yeah, like, Instagram pods.
Seriously? Like, I didn't even think it was a real thing back when it was a thing, and yet people are still doing it. So like, I don't know. I think I've changed a lot in the way that I just view social media, and even, I use it as kind of my connection to people. Like literally the one reason that I continue to post to Instagram is to, it's great if I'm going somewhere and like I want to link up with somebody. Like that's the biggest audience that I have. So that's where I'm gonna like meet. I was in New York back in, when was it? October, I think. Yeah, it was right after I got back from Colorado. But like, used Instagram and met up with somebody and ended up hanging out with them the whole trip. And it was so much fun. And, those kind of relationships, those are the things that I like relish of the Instagram of old. Just being able to go somewhere that you've never been before, meet up with somebody that you've never met before, and instantly you're like good friends and you semi know each other because you've been following each other for 3 years or whatever it is. And so that's really that. And then just being able to, I hate the term influencer and I would never consider myself an influencer, but like there are people that are interested in what I have to say about just photography and gear and techniques and stuff. And I really love that because I love kind of playing, I don't want to say the teacher because I'm definitely not qualified to teach anything, but like I love being the instructional guy that can help somebody out when they're like really hurting on their decision between like this camera and that camera or this lens and that lens. And I feel like if there's anything that like being affiliated with a camera brand gives me, it's like a unique perspective into gear. Because if somebody can come to me and say like, hey, I want the latest and greatest Fujifilm camera, but like, I don't know if it's in my budget, then I can be like, dude, you don't need the latest and greatest. If that's coming from me, then like, it has a little bit more weight. And that's the kind of stuff that I really like still love social media for. So that's really the biggest, those are the reasons that I am even on and like continuing to post on the platform. Otherwise I probably would have abandoned it long ago.
Yeah. I feel like that's something you're good at in general. Even for me, when I bought a Fuji X-T20 just for fun, I was like, hey, I want something small and just like walk around with. And I was trying to like bridge that gap. You answered all my stupid questions where I was like, what? Like if you hang out with Nikon and Canon, you're like, okay, things are pretty similar. And then you step out into Fuji and, now I shoot Sony, which is crazy. But like the things are they just feel different. Menus are different. Yeah. Like the company's like system of thought essentially is very different. So, just texting you, I was like, all right, I basically want it to work the same way as my old camera, but how can I do this? Like it was, there's something about like when you get a new piece of gear or anything where you don't immediately see the greatness that it can have until you feel comfortable with it. And I think for a lot of people, that's like super frustrating, whatever. That just gave me an idea. One, you should do like 2 like Instagram lives or IGTV stories where it'd be like, one, which Fuji camera should you buy right now? Which could be cool, like just to give perspective or whatever. And then like, you probably have this somewhere, but it'd be cool to like watch you set up a new Fuji anything out of the box. I think people would be fascinated by that because I think that's like,
that is like a genius idea. Actually, I've been like, that's the other thing I didn't mention is one of the other things I still use Instagram for is stories. Like I love stories and I haven't had anything to story over the past like really month, but like that I've been thinking lately, like, man, I've been slacking and like storing and connecting to people, but that would be a great way to do it. So I'm I'm writing those down actually right now. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I love just coming up with content ideas for other people. I feel like it's a lot easier than for myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it just seems like on brand and it's like what people want. And then, especially, I feel like there are photographers that, like something I've come to realize, and I don't feel that bad about it, is I don't feel like photographers come to me for photographer advice. They come for business, client, money, whatever. Like, hey, how can I actually build an empire based off of this thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, like come talk to me. Whereas, if I take a cool shot and somebody's like, hey, this is really cool, great job, or how'd you do this? I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But like, I know a lot of wedding photographers in general who like they just want to make something cool every time, and I think that's so cool, and that's just not me. And it's just never been me, and I don't know if that's like laziness or I just whatever. But for you're one of those guys that I know where like photographers are your biggest audience.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll put it that way.
Yep.
And so I always think like, okay, yeah, like your content is, at least on Instagram, is just like camera stuff or gear stuff or editing stuff like that. You're like, if I released presets, people would be like, haha, cool, man. Whereas like you're like, oh yeah, I want the Bryan Minear look. Like this is what I want to have. And so I think that is just like that kind of content where you can relate it with like your Fuji or just walking through kind of camera stuff. Or I put it this way, I used to do a lot of stories when you were shooting and you would show like the live view of the camera and then you press the shutter. I bet a ton of people like love that because they're like, I get to see it before it's happened and you're doing it because it's like cool, but also it's like, hey, not that much Photoshop comes into this, which is like what everybody is thinking, right? You're just like, hey, like colors, curves, dodge and burn, like these three things, these essentially, at some stage of what's happening, and people, how you approach it, people are like want to make it more complicated, and you're like, no, well, like I have the colors that I like, we start there. I have the curve that I like, or whatever, or vice versa. You might start with like, what is my exposure? What's that look like? What are we doing? Kind of work it backwards, and it's people like to see that. I think people like to see how the sausage is made by professional sausage makers.
No, I would agree with that. I have people all the time that like are like, hey, how did you make this? And I'm like, well, you just missed my story then.
Yeah,
definitely exists.
You're like, pay attention.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is because I have designer brain and I love when things line up. Like, I would say 90% of the time when I post like the moon in line with a road or a tree or the sun in line with something, it's 90% of the time it is totally real, and then 10% of the time it's me just needing to Photoshop something to make a mediocre shot that much better. But my favorite thing to do with stories is when something is lined up to be like, okay, here you go. Here's your proof that this isn't Photoshopped when you do see it in a couple days. Like, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I could also see you too, and this is just random. This is not what this podcast is for, but why not give people ideas? For you, it'd be like, especially landscape kind of centric people. Like, imagine if you, or even like think of like Chris Burkard, just like, obviously, let's say you're answering questions before they happen. So it's like, we know that you use photo pills. Okay, cool. This app is cool. You open it and you're like, all right, how the hell do I use this? And like content for you is like, all right, here's how I use photo pills to plan out my sunrise or what I'm going to do. Because like we just talked about, you want the moon or the sun or whatever in line. So you're like, oh, well, you can plan that, like it's going to go the same way. Right. Out of the 366 days we have in 2020, we can predict where it's going to go, how it's going to be, when it's going to come up, all this stuff. And I think that's one of those things. It's like a quote unquote like extracurricular, extra photographer kind of knowledge that is needed and wanted, but people don't know that they want to ask that. Like that's a question I'm like, okay, I want to know how Bryan uses photo pills. I want to know how Chris Burkard uses photo pills, like whatever. Yeah, no, that's great. And it's funny because I've thought in the past, not recently, but I have a workshop that I did last September in Cleveland where it was like kind of a landscape photography boot camp. Okay. And it was a lot of just technique, apps, stuff, there was a whole post-processing segment, but like it was mainly about the the why, the how, the different techniques that you can use. Like a quarter of it was like astrophotography, like another quarter was ND filters, that type of stuff. But like I've been thinking of how, and I have a friend that is an amazing video guy creator. He actually works with Dan Newman, our friend Dan. Oh, cool. A lot. But like he's local here, and so he's all the time like, dude, you need to get on YouTube. I would totally film your stuff for you. That way you wouldn't have to worry about it. And so that's one thing I've wanted to create, kind of like this landscape photography boot camp. My problem is wanting to do it. Like I would want to do it where like I'm actually out somewhere cool. I would want to have a segment where I'm like, look, you can create even when you're in a shitty place like me in Michigan, but like, but a lot of it I would want to be like, here's the location part where we're in Yosemite and this is the lesson we're going to do today. You know what I mean? And I just haven't had the bandwidth to really flesh out that, like something that just extensive. Exactly. Bro, this is, obviously everybody has a workshop and everybody has a course and everybody has this stuff, but like you need to like, you could easily now with like do you know what Kajabi is or Kajabi or whatever it's called?
No, what's that?
So that's like the number one like course software that everybody's using to launch their courses essentially. So whether it's a course on Instagram or business or whatever, but like your course is like landscape bootcamp or whatever. Yeah. And $50, $49, whatever. And that's your final like CTA, essentially your final call. It's just like, hey, I have this in my course, like it's cool, whatever. And then like you release like 3 or 5. I always give you homework on podcasts. What the fuck? I just am thinking like, oh, this would be so cool. Of course, Bryan could do this. Like, this is awesome. Again, I feel like photographer, anybody that has a niche. For me, I'm trying to find my niche even more. But for you, this niche is the style of photography that you create and how you create it. And yeah, you could totally do that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at like the F-stoppers courses, but
yeah,
like,
absolutely. Yeah. Like Elia is a friend of mine. Like I love the stuff that he puts together.
Exactly. We've tried to have him on the podcast, so I need you to put in a good word.
Oh yeah, absolutely can. He's awesome. So I can text him right now.
Do it. He's an awesome guy, and even F-stoppers, they do it in I feel like an easier way where like, hey, here's all the videos and folders, but I think Kajabi is just like kind of online viewing to keep it from people stealing it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, man, you pick like 3 locations, you do a few post-processing of all those locations, maybe you spend like $1,000 to go out to the Badlands, you do daytime, sunrise, astro, whatever, and get this video guy to freaking do it and say, make sure you give him like a payment up front, and then you just do this course thing. I don't know. I think that could be cool, and I think I don't know,
dude. I feel like this podcast quickly turned into the Adam helping Bryan establish a business presence podcast.
This is all like, you have no idea, but I mean, now you have some idea actually, but like, I have so many friends that I went to college with who like are incredible at a thing, and I'm just like, guys, you're already an expert at this. Like, you have a master's degree, you teach this or whatever. I'm like, why aren't you making money off this thing that you're really good at?
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you could pay your bills and only do this thing that you love to do all the time? And the person who you see in the mirror every day is your boss. Like, I feel like that's my niche. When people are, I asked a good friend of mine, they're like, what do you think? What do you think I'm good at? And he was like, oh, you help people go full time in whatever they want to do. And I was like, oh, so like for you, like that course is definitely like passive income. Once you get it all set up, do a good job. You could put it on Skillshare too. I mean, I feel like that's the other side of it. But I think a lot of people on this Kajabi thing are kind of, it's more customizable.
Yeah.
It's their Skillshare doesn't get a cut essentially. Anyway, so
dude, it's awesome.
Now that you have homework to do, just write out your outline, get it done. Let's make it happen, and have it ready for April consumption.
You'll be the first credit at the end.
Hey, that's the one thing with this podcast. It's kind of weird. Some people, I didn't even know this was a thing, but a lot of people that have like a product or something, they've like sent it to me. So like, I'll interview somebody, and they're like, hey, do you want to check out our course just so you can like feel good about it? I'm like, sure, that'd be cool. And there's been a lot of really good stuff, and then some stuff that's been like, whoa, this is bad. So happy to beta test anything, happy to look at anything or whatever. But well, dude, we should wrap it up there. I feel like that's inspirational, and if the cool thing is that like people listening to this can figure out their niche and like go do that.
Absolutely.
And make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And I got to hear kind of the beginning is kind of what you've been going through, and then like, okay, what's next? The main goal I think for you is that you just want to create, you want to keep creating. So dude, obviously second time podcaster, people can go find you on Instagram at Bryan Minear.
Yep.
And yeah, man, I appreciate you so much. It's been so good to chat with you again. And you need to edit those 5 episodes on We the Creators. That's the first homework that I'm giving you. People go listen to his podcast. I'll link it in the show notes. Go listen to his podcast.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me again. This has been great, and it's honestly made me feel better. A lot of the stuff that I said at the beginning, like I hadn't really vocalized, so I think it helped to kind of just get it outside of my head for once. And obviously, you always have the really positive feedback. So really,
yeah. No, this is it's one of those things, podcast included, but like in general. There's something about, I think we talked about this on your show, where it's like, I love when I'm in a room with other photographers that don't feel like threatened or whatever, and vice versa. And I've been there. I've been the hungry one there, if you will. But it's nice to like just talk about what we're going through, and like, I mean, I want everybody, like I said, to make money off of what they're good at, because I think that's just like, it's fun to be a freelancer. Yeah. But nonetheless, people need to hear that kind of conversation. And, it's one of those things where I think, especially locally for you, maybe you don't have just community person where you can just like verbally talk it out, like over digital coffee essentially. And it's important. That's a human thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we all need. And so it's cool, man. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for everything. And this should pop up soon. And yeah, man, I love you, man. It's awesome.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for having me.
I could talk to Bryan Minear all day. Hopefully you enjoyed that episode. Hopefully it was deep enough for you. And hopefully, it felt like something that you could use as a resource for you, just to reach out to him or me and just know that you're not alone in this process. Guys, like if Bryan and I can make it happen, you can make it happen. And it's just one of those things where you just need a buddy, you need community, you need people around you to affirm you and support you. And it's just going to be slower and harder if you go alone. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about today. And I just love Bryan. He's so great. Definitely make sure that you're in the live workshop next week. All right. March 11th, 7 p.m. in the Facebook group, togfb.com, togfb.com. First time we're doing this, maybe the only time we're doing this. Would love to have you. Thanks to our sponsors, Tave, get your business right. Photo Booth Supply Co. Get your photo booth. Start making money today. Love those two. Have a wonderful day, guys. Keep being awesome.